The Philosopher's Stone or Stone of the Philosophers is a legendary alchemical substance capable of turning base metals such as mercury into gold or silver. It is also able to extend one's life. It's called the elixir of life, useful for rejuvenation and for achieving immortality. For many centuries, it was the most sought-after goal in alchemy. The Philosopher's Stone was the central symbol of the mystical terminology of alchemy, symbolizing perfection at its finest, enlightenment, and heavenly bliss. Efforts to discover the Philosopher's Stone were known as the Magnum Opus. History: mention of the Philosopher's Stone in writing can be found as far back as Chirocmeta by Zosimos of Panopolis. Alchemical writers assign a longer history. Elias Ashmolean, the anonymous author of Gloria Mundi, claimed that its history goes back to Adam, who acquired the knowledge of the stone directly from God. This knowledge was said to be passed down through biblical patriarchs, giving them their longevity. The legend of this stone was also compared to the biblical history of the Temple of Solomon and the rejected cornerstone described in Psalm 118. The theoretical roots outlining the stone unregistered trademark S creation can be traced to Greek philosophy. Alchemists later used the classical elements, the concept of anima mundi, and creation stories presented in texts like Plato's Timaeus as analogies for their process. According to Plato, the four elements are derived from a common source or prima materia, associated with chaos. Prima materia is also the name alchemists assigned to the starting ingredient for the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. The importance of this philosophical first matter persisted through the history of alchemy. In the 17th century, Thomas Vaughan writes, "The first matter of the stone is the very same with the first matter of all things." Middle Ages. The 8th century alchemist Jabir ibn Hayyan analyzed each classical element in terms of the four basic qualities. Fire was both hot and dry, earth cold and dry, water cold and moist, and air hot and moist. He theorized that every metal was a combination of these four principles, two of them interior and two exterior. From this premise, it was reasoned that the transmutation of one metal into another could be effected by the rearrangement of its basic qualities. This change would presumably be mediated by a substance, which came to be called elixir in Arabic. It is often considered to exist as a dry red powder made from a legendary stone the Philosopher's Stone. Jabir's theory was based on the concept that metals like gold and silver could be hidden in alloys and ores, from which they could be recovered by the appropriate chemical treatment. Jabir himself is believed to be the inventor of aqua regia, a mixture of muriatic and nitric acids, one of the few substances that can dissolve gold. In the 11th century, there was a debate among Muslim world chemists on whether the transmutation of substances was possible. A leading opponent was Avicenna, who discredited the theory of transmutation of substances, stating, "Those of the chemical craft know well that no change can be effected in the different species of substances, though they can produce the appearance of such change." According to legend, the 13th century scientist and philosopher Albertus Magnus is said to have discovered the Philosopher's Stone and passed it to his pupil, Thomas Aquinas, shortly before his death circa 1280. Magnus does not confirm he discovered the stone in his writings, but he did record that he witnessed the creation of gold by transmutation. Renaissance to early modern period. The 16th century Swiss alchemist Paracelsus believed in the existence of alkahest, which he thought to be an undiscovered element from which all other elements were simply derivative forms. Paracelsus believed that this element was, in fact, the Philosopher's Stone. The English physician-philosopher Sir Thomas Browne in his spiritual testament Religio Medici identified the religious aspect of the quest for the Philosopher's Stone when declaring, "The smattering I have of the Philosopher's Stone, hath taught me a great deal of divinity." A mystical text published in the 17th century called the Mutus Liber appears to be a symbolic instruction manual for concocting a Philosopher's Stone. Called the Wordless Book, it was a collection of 15 illustrations. Contemporary era. According to the modern understanding, gold is a chemical element that cannot always be created from other elements by means of chemical reactions. Metallic gold can be dissolved from a rock and precipitated, giving the appearance that gold has been created, but the gold was already in the rock. As a heavy element, the cosmogenic origin of gold must be in extremely energetic nuclear reactions, which occur only in high-mass stars. It has been proposed that most of heavy elements like gold are produced in neutron-star collisions. Very small amounts of gold can be created artificially with particle accelerators or nuclear reactors. However, these methods produce radioactive isotopes and are extremely costly, requiring rare precursor isotopes and expensive product separation and purification. Thus, synthesis of gold by nuclear reaction does not appear commercially viable. In 2014, the Swedish artist Max Magnus Norman published the book Magnum Opus, in which he claims and describes how he managed to create the Philosopher's Stone. In Buddhism and Hinduism equals. The equivalent of the Philosopher's Stone in Buddhism and Hinduism is the Cintamani. It is also referred as Parasmani or Paras. In Buddhism, Chintamani is held by the Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara and Ksitagarbha. It is also seen carried upon the back of the lungtar, which is depicted on Tibetan prayer flags. By reciting the Dharani of Chintamani, Buddhist tradition maintains that one attains the wisdom of Buddhas, is able to understand the truth of the Buddhas, and turns afflictions into body. It is said to allow one to see the holy retinue of Amitabha and his assembly upon one's deathbed. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Chintamani is sometimes depicted as a luminous pearl and is in the possession of several of different forms of the Buddha. Within Hinduism, it is connected with the gods Vishnu and Ganesha. In Hindu tradition, it is often depicted as a fabulous jewel in the possession of the Naga king or as on the forehead of the Makara. The Yogavasistha, originally written in the 10th century AD, contains a story about the Philosopher's Stone. A great Hindu sage wrote about the spiritual accomplishment of gnosis using the metaphor of the Philosopher's Stone. Saint Naneshwar wrote a commentary with 17 references to the Philosopher's Stone that explicitly transmutes base metal into gold. The 7th century Indian sage Thirumala in his classic Tirumandiram explains man's path to immortal divinity. In verse 2709 he declares that the name of God, Shiva or the god Shambhala, is an alchemical vehicle that turns the body into immortal gold. It could also be the Sumantakamani. Properties: the Philosopher's Stone has many mystical and magical properties. The most commonly mentioned properties are the ability to transmute base metals into gold or silver, and the ability to heal all forms of illness and prolong the life of any person who consumes a small part of the Philosopher's Stone. Other mentioned properties include creation of perpetually burning lamps, transmutation of common crystals into precious stones and diamonds, reviving of dead plants, creation of flexible or malleable glass, or the creation of a clone or homunculus. Names numerous synonyms were used to make oblique reference to the stone, such as white stone, vitriol, also lapis noster, lapis occultus, in water at the box, and numerous oblique, mystical or mythological references such as Adam, animal, alchist, antidotus, antimonium, aqua benedicta, aqua volens pararum, arcanum, atramentum, autumnus, basilicus, brutorum cor, bufo, capillus, capistramori, carbons, cerberus, chaos, snis cineres, crocus, dominus philosophorum, divine quintessence, draco elixir, filius ignis, fimus, folium, fracta, granum, granum frumenti, hematides, hepa, herba, herbalis, lac, melancholia, ovum philosophorum, panacea salutifera, pandora, phoenix, philosophic mercury, pyrites, radices arboris solas, regina, rex. Regum, sal metallorum, salvator taurinus, talcum, thesaurus, ventus hermetus. Many of the medieval allegories for a Christ were adopted for the lapis, and the Christ and the stone were indeed taken as identical in a mystical sense. The name of stone, or lapis itself, is informed by early Christian allegory, such as Priscillian, who stated unicornis est Deus, nobis petra Christus, nobis lapis angularis Jesus, nobis humanum homo Christus. In some texts it is simply called stone, or a stone, or in the case of Thomas Norton's ordinal, or delicious stone. The stone was frequently praised and referred to in such terms. It needs to be noted that philosophorum does not mean of the philosopher, or the philosophers in the sense of a single philosopher. It means of the philosophers in the sense of a plurality of philosophers. Appearance equals. Descriptions of the philosopher's stone are numerous and various. According to alchemical texts, the stone of the philosophers came in two varieties, prepared by an almost identical method, white and red, the white stone being a less matured version of the red stone. Some ancient and medieval alchemical texts leave clues to the physical appearance of the stone of the philosophers, specifically the red stone. It is often said to be orange or red when ground to powder. Or in a solid form, an intermediate between red and purple, transparent and glass-like. The weight is spoken of as being heavier than gold, and it is soluble in any liquid, yet incombustible in fire. Alchemical authors sometimes suggest that the stone's descriptors are metaphorical. It is called a stone, not because it is like a stone. The appearance is expressed geometrically in Michael Mayer's Atalanta Fugains. Make of a man and woman a circle. Then a quadrangle. Out of this a triangle. Make again a circle, and you will have the stone of the wise. Thus is made the stone, which thou canst not discover, unless you, through diligence, learn to understand this geometrical teaching. Ropesissa uses the imagery of the Christian Passion, telling us it ascends from the sepulchre of the most excellent King, shining and glorious, resuscitated from the dead and wearing a red diadem. Interpretations equals, the various names and attributes assigned to the philosopher's stone has led to long-standing speculation on its composition and source. Exoteric candidates have been found in metals, plants, rocks, chemical compounds, and bodily products such as hair, urine, and eggs. Justus von Liebig states that it was indispensable that every substance accessible should be observed and examined. Alchemists once thought a key component in the creation of the stone was a mythical element named karmat. Esoteric hermetic alchemists may reject work on exoteric substances, instead directing their search for the philosopher's stone inward. Though esoteric and exoteric approaches are sometimes mixed, it is clear that some authors are not concerned with material substances but are employing the language of exoteric alchemy for the sole purpose of expressing theological, philosophical, or mystical beliefs and aspirations. New interpretations continue to be developed around spagyric, chemical, and esoteric schools of thought. Creation. The philosopher's stone is created by the alchemical method known as the Magnum Opus or the Great Work. Often expressed as a series of color changes or chemical processes, the instructions for creating the philosopher's stone are varied. When expressed in colors, the work may pass through phases of nigredo, albedo, citrinitas, and rubedo. When expressed as a series of chemical processes, it often includes 7 or 12 stages concluding in multiplication and projection. Art and entertainment. The philosopher's stone has been a subject, inspiration, or plot feature of innumerable artistic works, novels, comics, movies, animations, video games, and musical compositions. See also. References. Further reading, Encyclopaedia Britannica. Philosopher's Stone and Alchemy. Guiley, Rosemary. The Encyclopedia of Magic and Alchemy. Infobis Publishing, USA. ISBN 0-8160-6048-7 pages 250 €252. Myers, Richard. The Basics of Chemistry. Greenwood Publishing Group, USA. ISBN 0-313-31664-3 pages 11 €12. Pagel, Walter. Paracelsus, An Introduction to Philosophical Medicine in the Era of the Renaissance. Carter Publishers, Switzerland. ISBN 3-8055-3518-X. Thompson, Charles John Samuel, 1932. Alchemy and Alchemists. Chapter 9. Courier Dover Publications, USA. ISBN 0-486-42110-4 pages 68 €76. External links, The Philosopher's Stone by Edward Kelly.